Welcome to Delightfully Dysfunctional, a podcast about navigating the emotions of the human condition and the challenges that come with it. I'm Kaylani Persian Mason, a psychotherapist and life coach with James Timmons, an ever-curious human. This is not a replacement for mental health therapy. Please seek out mental health care if that's what you're needing. This is an opportunity for self-healers to dive deep and understand more about themselves.
Should I do the greeting this time? I'll do it like this. Good morrow. I'm James, and this is Kaylani.
Greetings.
How are you feeling? Forlorn.
Oh, no. Welcome to the Delightfully Dysfunctional podcast. I'm Kaylani, and this is James.
Wait, you didn't like that greeting? Why did you do it over?
You didn't say the name of the podcast.
Oh, okay. Dang it. Well, they already know. See, we're living out being dysfunctional.
Yes. Oh, funny.
Damn, now I won't get another chance. Comment if you guys think my greeting was better. Just kidding.
We'll start a poll.
Yeah.
Welcome back. I'm Kaylani, and this is James. This is Delightfully Dysfunctional, and we are a podcast all about exploring the messiness of being human, being curious about it. And, I feel like... Well, we just finished recording one. We're rolling right into another one.
Yeah.
And I am excited about this one. It's about friendship. It's about friendships that change and end and kind of the grief and acceptance of that, because I don't know that that's something we talk about a lot. But before we do talk about that, I think it would be fun to have our little chit-chat.
Oh, meet and greet? I have a joke
chit-chat.
first.
I'm ready.
Why doesn't T-Rex have any friends?
I don't know. He doesn't give good hugs.
Because they're all dead.
Oh, well, yeah, that's true, too.
Anyway, how am I doing? All my friends are dead.
Sad.
I'm sorry, I'm being really dramatic, or being really dark this morning.
Yeah.
I really wanted to.
Yeah.
I can cue that in. All my friends are dead.
Yeah,
Debbie Downer.
terrible.
But cue it in after I said.
Yeah. Okay, definitely, that's going in.
I forget jokes all the time. There's all the times I'm like, I need to remember about that one. That's a simple one. I can remember it. No, they're gone.
My favorite jokes are the ones that like they drag it out for like a 10-minute story and then it ends with one punchline. Yeah, I love those. So anyway, I'm doing well, as I shared in the previous episode, which we talked about an hour ago, but between the people that are listening will have heard it a week ago at this point. But life is trending in the right direction, and mindset is great. And I feel like I've worked through like my desert place and all my mess to where it feels like a lot more concrete this time. Mm-hmm. So I'm just really encouraged with the way that life is headed. And I had some distractions along the way, but those will come down the road also probably. But just like all of our conversations about like coming back to self and recalibrating and like setting your barometer and knowing when something kind of feels off, that is a symptom that that thing needs to be removed from your life or something.
Yeah.
So I'm really building my foundation in all of that.
All this free therapy is going to
good
use.
It is. It really is. I've told people that. I'm like, okay, if you want free therapy, just start a podcast with your therapist. No, yeah, it's been great. Because like the one benefit of our podcast is that, I get to hear the conversation a couple extra times.
Oh, yeah, because I know. It was funny. It had been 3 weeks since we'd seen each other because we've been busy. And you were like, I feel like I have seen you recently because I'm editing the footage and, like, seeing you. And yeah, it's funny. I had an appointment with a new doctor a week or two ago, and she's like, I was just listening to your podcast, and now I'm looking at you on Zoom, and I'm like, this is weird. Like, I don't know. Like, some of the attention, I'm needing to get a little bit used to it, because I speak the things out into the world, and I don't know that I think about, like, running into our listeners, and sometimes it happens, which is fun.
Well, that's another thing. Like, I'm always worried, because people... like I'll hang out with people and they won't really ask me questions about myself as much because I'm like, they already know the answers because I've already overshared. You know,
we've already overshared. And I'm like,
well,
on
I
podcast.
still would like for you to ask how I'm doing.
That's funny. They're like, we already got you figured out.
Oh,
We've got you pegged.
So I get neglected a lot now.
Oh, no, whatever.
No. Anyway, yeah. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good. I think I'm always trying to find new balance with things.
Like
actually,
the shoes?
New balance
dad shoes?
right. Yeah, I'm on the market for some New Balance. So if you know where I can find some.
Those shoes are stupid.
Need that arch support.
Sorry, continue.
So this is something I haven't actually shared that much, but I've been dealing with some health stuff the last 6 months or so.
Oh no.
Yeah, and to the point where like there was a lot of confusion with some of the doctors I was working with last fall as to what was going on. I had things like Hodgkin's lymphoma. Maybe you should get a chest x-ray.
Oh.
And perhaps you have diabetes, or perhaps you have some GI something terrible. So yeah, it's like taken more energy from me, and it is really exhausting because sometimes my stomach would hurt like terribly after eating, and then it would reduce my appetite, and I'd be kind of worried or afraid of eating.
Yeah.
And a lot of things around food and eating and energy level. Anyway, some of that has been sorted out. I've figured out a few things. I had a colonoscopy and an endoscopy in February.
Oh,
fun stuff. And so we did learn a few things from that, and I'm really trying to make some kind of lifestyle shifts because that's basically the only option I have. So it's been a lot of navigating it, and I guess I'm sharing all of that because although there's so much good that's happening, and I love how this is taking off, I love the work I'm doing in my practice right now. For me personally, it's been a bit of a learning curve in how to readjust and listen to my body and balance things differently so that it can all work, because it's kind of like getting reacquainted with my body system in some ways. And it's not something I've spoken about a lot because I don't know. I think medical things are a little bit tricky and intimidating for me.
Yeah.
I obviously like to thrive in the mental health realm where it makes sense to my mind. But I'm wanting to because it's kind of an invisible illness, and I'm sometimes getting a bit of pushback from friends or family members, and I can understand because I haven't shared or been as open about what's going on, partially because I didn't know for the longest time what was happening.
Yeah.
And I wanted to find some ways to speak about the health issues I'm experiencing with more honesty, but not, I don't want like pity, but I don't want to hide it and not talk about it either, because it does adjust the energy I have or the capacity I have sometimes. So
well, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
That sounds really stressful and intimidating, like you said. Yeah. Health is, I mean, obviously such a huge part, but like yesterday my knee like hurt, and I started like really getting myself worked up about like having a knee injury and how right now would be a horrible time for that. And I had the beginning stages of a panic attack, and I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize how this is triggering to me. So like, yeah, I would imagine how much stress you've experienced over that, you know?
Yeah. Well, actually, now that you brought up panic attacks, I'll explain an element of this that I'm starting to figure out. So I have a hiatal hernia, which is a hernia where your stomach has popped up through your diaphragm a bit.
You're just a mess.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm just kidding.
No, it's like gross. Like, and it doesn't feel good to be aware of your internal organs.
Yeah.
And that's what it like. I can feel it, and it doesn't feel good.
Yeah.
And so it can create a lot of issues. But one thing that's now happened, I think like 3 times now that we've figured out, is that can also kind of rub against and disrupt your vagus nerve. And we've talked about the vagus nerve in the Brain and the Body episode, but it is the nerve that kind of lets your gut know when it's that fight, flight, freeze response and produces cortisol in your gut.
So you
and
just
has
can
a lot to do. So
you can just randomly have a trigger.
So there's been 3 times in this like 6-month period where I will randomly start getting really warm and flushed and nauseous, and I'm not having panicky thoughts, but like my heart rate goes up. I'm not having panicky thoughts. I'm thinking I would like to not throw up here, I would, like one time I was taking a bath and I was literally like could barely focus for my eyes to not black out, and I'm like I should pull the train so I don't drown. Like that was a thought I had, but it was not out of anxiety or panic.
Yeah, it's
and
almost
Zach
like
had to come and help me, and like I fainted once. So it's like this weird stuff that's happening that is very brain-body connected, but in a way that is very new to me.
That's scary. Yeah.
And I have doctors that I'm seeing, and I'm navigating that. But it takes a different kind of patience with myself. Where maybe I can't expect the same. I can't expect the same endurance.
Yeah.
And that can be a little bit frustrating, but I'm finding that I need to be able to talk about it with certain people. I don't want anyone to think that I'm like ignoring or not addressing it. So apparently I'm wanting to rip the frickin' Band-Aid off here and really broadcast.
Don't rip the Band-Aid off.
No, don't do it.
Yeah,
don't do it.
Take it easy.
Yeah. But that's one element of it. And I guess just to segue back or wrap it all around, like when you talked about mindset being such an important thing for you, I think that is definitely something that has helped me, because the really not feeling well or feeling really drained, it was really affecting my mood in the fall. And I feel like at the end of the day, there's so much that can go wrong in your life. You can never have your mindset and your attitude taken away. There's always ways that you can adjust and see a different perspective. And I've done a lot of work to try and do that and navigate it, because I don't know. Yeah, it's scary when there's health things that you don't understand and that your doctors don't understand.
Well, it reminds me, I just started reading this book that you have referenced and a friend has referenced as well. Viktor Frankl.
Yeah, Man's
Search for Meaning. Yeah, and how he was in such, because he describes like the stress of how the other prisoners in the concentration camp, there was like a hierarchy. And they were just as brutal as the guards, and so like and not realizing that there was also that stress element, but then he found meaning in that really, really horrible dark place, So mindset is so critical, because if you're in a really terrible situation,
Viktor Frankl in a Nazi concentration camp, when his wife and children have been taken. His parents, his siblings are gone, can find a way to shift his mindset. Yeah. And to a more helpful and productive place. That's pretty powerful. And then we don't really have any excuse not to try.
Yeah. And that just shows you how resilient you are.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, my experience was nothing to that degree.
You weren't thrown into concentration.
No. But I did have a really awful last couple of years.
Yeah.
And I definitely reached a point of where I just felt like not wanting to live anymore, and like just giving up. But then the mental shift is honestly really what got me to climb out of that horrible like grave that I was in. And so, because everything starts in your mind. It's, your whole body, everything starts in your mind. And so if you can just take control and stop the invasive thoughts and be like, no, mind, you're not going to control me anymore. I'm going to control you. You know what's stupid about the brain? Is that
stupid brain.
All the stuff in this comedian, I can't remember his name, Peter or something. He says this joke, but, so I'm going to rip him off. all the good stuff that your body needs at any given point is in your body, and your brain can just release it. But your brain's such an asshole, and it'll just be like, nope, you know what?
Hanging on to that serotonin.
Yeah, we're gonna give you adrenaline and cortisol right now, just for no reason. You'll be dead asleep in the middle of the night, resting. Your body's healing, and your brain's like, hey, let's think about that awful that thing you said 3 years ago to that one person that they forgot about.
Yeah.
And you're like, yeah, let's just spend all the night. It's like, F you, brain. Give me the good stuff.
Give me the good stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, if only it were so easy. But that's, I think that good things take work and time, and it's more so that shift in mindset is not as simple, right?
Yeah.
And it wasn't simple for you either. And it feels intimidating. I even think, I think that we can be intimidated of our greatness and our potential too. And I think that stops us. I think sometimes there might be a knowing within us of what we're actually capable of, but to do that would mean a lot of lifestyle shift or a lot of change of habit, and that feels fearful. Like, what if I do that and then I fail? Well, that really sucks. It'd be much better to just have this lofty dream that I never really take steps towards and talk about as if I'm really capable without doing the work of the mindset shift and doing the action steps required.
Yeah, that's really good. Sorry, I'm so distracted because I remembered when I here's where my brain is
take me on
really
the rabbit
not
trail.
linear. We were talking about brains, and then I remembered how that brain,
which
in
is
the background,
in our studio, he's pointing to.
It looks like a giant penis.
Does it?
If you go back and we might cut this out, but if you go back to all of our reels, my angle, you'll see that brain in the background, and the way the wood is the same color.
Oh, that's funny.
That looks like a giant penis. People have told me that, and I just forget.
No way.
So we need to move that around, or we don't. That's a little Easter egg for you guys.
It's a Rorschach test.
It's a Rorschach test. Yeah, do you know what a Rorschach test is?
No.
It's a projective assessment, which means it's like, the blobs.
Oh,
blobs.
yeah.
That's the Rorschach test.
Okay.
What do you see? And then based on what you say, they have somewhat statistical indications of what that could mean.
Are you telling me that I'm the only one that sees a penis, and now I need to adjust that because
no one else sees a penis,
like,
James?
oh yeah, penis, James. Oh, your brain is a penis.
I see penises
Weird.
everywhere. Oh my goodness. Yeah. What does that say about James?
I mean, it's not wrong.
Oh no. But yeah, anyways, this mindset shift.
Back to what we were talking about.
Is something that is really important and helpful, and something that we'll always need to do. And it's important then in this curious culture, it's a curiosity about yourself, which means that you're able to tune into yourself.
Yeah.
Not ever holding on to this idea of I've got it all figured out and I've got all the answers, because that really feels more like judgment of others in that ego state, or a hypercriticalness of yourself, which might be where I tend to fall into and have to be more watchful of is finding that balance within your mindset.
Yeah.
Big segue from penis brain. None of that is really related to what we're talking about today, so there's no way to ease in gently.
Let's just go for it.
Yeah, this is something that's been on my mind. As adults, it's hard to make new friends, but also I think as we keep growing, and if we're doing this work of leveling up, of being curious, I think a lot of people find that they might outgrow their friendships too, or lose friends along the way.
Yeah.
And we don't always talk about the pain and heartbreak of friendship breakups.
Yeah.
And the grief of that. And I want us to kind of provide a space to discuss it. I don't know that I don't have like the scientific data that I normally do to intersperse into the conversation. This is just, from a heart that's felt it before.
Same.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, again, I don't have the scientific data either, but I have the experience. And at this very moment, I'm in a place in my life where I don't have very many friends. I used to have a lot of friends. I used to belong to used to be embedded in a church community where there was never a moment where I was like lonely.
And you were, I'm sure, part of the leadership I can see there. Yeah.
And so and I was married, you know, I had kids, and so I remember there would be moments where I was like, oh, I need to just like go spend a weekend alone so I can have some alone time. Like that's how well fed I was with human relationships. Now it's the polar opposite of that, you know, because I've shared
we are the only people James sees.
Pretty much. You're on a short list. But because I shared my past where I pretty much self-sabotaged my whole life, and so I lost a lot of friends. Some of them have come back, which has been great, but a lot of them, it's, you know, there was just too much pain. So those friendships are no longer. Maybe they'll come back, and maybe if soon I'll, you know, have more relationships budding. I don't know, but it is a really awful place to have that level of loneliness. It's a lot worse than I thought it would be. And so, and then when you are alone, you it's like this shame and like this where you're like embarrassed. You don't want to reach out because you don't want people to think to realize that you're alone, because then they almost project like, oh, well then you're a loser, or you know. And so,
there's a vulnerability to loneliness that is hard to crawl out of too.
So like trying to reach it, because there's, you know, there'll be times where I know that it feels like everyone else is like doing something on the weekends, and I'm just like, well, I'll just watch Netflix. And so I'm like, well, maybe I can go out, I could reach out to this friend and we can like go out to the bars or something. But then I'm like, no, but they just it's really a lack of leaning in. And so I guess that's my situation. So how would you advise?
Well, I mean, you found a gym community, and I think you're finding new community, and there's a lot of things that you are doing. I think it is difficult as adults, middle-aged adults even, to navigate that, because everyone's lives are busy, and finding the time or people who you vibe with. I feel like I've gotten a lot more selective about who I invite into my life because of the work that I've done for myself and just wanting to be surrounded by quality people. And I've been a lot more intentional because the people that you are around influence you. Yeah. And I want to be influenced and be around people who help me be a better person, or keep me accountable, or are able to dive into, you know, passionate conversation and have respect and compassion. Like there's more than just I want to have fun to the equation of who enters my inner circle now. Yeah,
so it's like there's a level of being selective.
Yeah.
So and that is true, because I know that there are opportunities of like people that I could surround myself with, but it's like, well, I don't necessarily want. I want a very selective like group of people now, because I would rather be alone than be influenced by toxic people or something, you know. And so I guess in my mind I'm like that answers the question of why am I alone, partly because that I'm kind of creating that for myself. So but relationships,
sometimes when you can see the purpose to loneliness like that, it gives it a different kind of meaning. Now it's selective. It's not loneliness that like isn't because it's not abandonment or rejection. It's because the thing that you're aiming for looks different than it used to.
Yeah. Well, and I've kind of arrived on the thought of, I'm here, I call it my desert place. I'm here in my desert until I can be content in my desert. And
in my woo-woo community, we would call it like the dark night of the soul.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, because like where I'm at right now was the greatest fear of my entire life before.
Yeah.
So now that I'm in it, and then I'm like navigating and I'm finding contentment and peace and joy in this terrible place that I put myself in. It's like, well, now like we can build here, you know, or something. I don't know. In my mind, I've equated it to like Moses wandering in the desert, but he never got to go into the promised land though. He died beforehand. So it's like, okay, I don't want that. But Yeah, but it's kind of like...
I mean, there's an opportunity to rebuild then.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see that. I think there's been several times in my life where the thing that I thought would be the worst thing ever to happen ended up happening. Mm-hmm. And it was humbling. Mm-hmm, yeah. It was very humbling to have to like, okay, well, here I am. And I don't want to feel like it's the worst thing ever, actually. I want to feel like it's something that I can navigate through. And you can. I think that that's a really powerful reminder to people. Like, you can go through some really tough shit, and that doesn't mean you can't navigate your way out of it. It just might look messier. Yeah.
Yeah, because, like, another element for me is, like, I shared previously about the financial component of it, where my business fell apart. Mm-hmm. And I keep realizing that the same lessons keep coming over and over, and I can't leave this desert place until I finally learn the lesson, because it's like, James, just fucking learn the lesson, you know? And so the things I've gleaned from all this is that like my lack of consistency and commitment have led me to here. So now it's like I shared before, the opposite action in being consistent, that's going to get me out of this. You know, and so then that's the lesson that I've had to learn over and over for decades. And so it's finally like, okay, well, it's going to become more painful the longer it takes you to learn. But then the crappy thing is that I sit here and I see other people who suck at consistency, and they have the same issues that I had, but they're thriving, you know?
But it's really in how well you know them, you know? Yeah. Like, I think whenever we think that about someone, it just means you haven't gotten to know them yet.
Yeah, that's true.
You don't, yeah.
I'm sort of projecting, like, a certain level of...
Yeah, and a comparison. I mean, there was probably a lot of what was going on in what you call this, you know, self-sabotaging demise of your marriage and business that no one knew about. And, right? They could have taken a look and had a very different idea of what was happening and not had any idea what was really going on.
Yeah, that's a good point. And so I guess I shouldn't be comparing anyway.
I think we should compare to ourselves instead of others. And when I think about that, like for myself, and I think for yourself too, you should feel fucking proud.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. When you can compare with yourself, if you are actually being intentional about changing those habits and operating differently and practicing gratitude and being radically honest with yourself and with others, which means if something is awkward, if something is uncomfortable, you still have to say it and you still have to own it.
Yeah.
Like, to me, that kind of integrity is so important, and that's what I gravitate towards when I'm looking for a friend and when I'm looking for someone that I want to invest time into.
Yeah.
But I think you should feel proud of the where you've come and where you're trying to go, even if it's messy, beautiful, and it still requires, you know, taking ownership and trying again. That's coming from that place of curiosity, not of that, you know, I've got it all figured out.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lesson in literally every moment.
Yeah.
And so if you can just kind of live in that humility and that curiosity, then that's probably the place I need to exist. Is always looking for the lesson.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For me, I think it was when I was married to my first husband, I was really realizing how many things were out of alignment, and my body was starting to tell me some messages too. I remember getting like daily headaches and just like way more aches and pains and just things where I'm like, are you supposed to feel like you're this old already? And this was really just the stress and trauma of that relationship taking a toll on my body and really letting me know like it was tapping out. It wasn't having it. And I think that for me as a sensitive person, I've realized that tends to happen a lot. Like my body will let me know. Oh God, I just thought of a really embarrassing story, but I don't think I'm ready to tell it. I'll just say that like right before I married my first husband, my body was like, it was like breaking out into rashes. It was like telling me a story that said run. And I was like, this need more cream. Just keep the cream coming, rub it in. But like there's things like that I personally notice for myself and I have to be in tune with. And this was happening for me in that first marriage where I really started having to come to terms with doing something that I never wanted to do.
Yeah.
That I was going to have to be someone who got a divorce after I'd witnessed all these divorces in my family, after I'd like just felt so strongly like, but you're going to do it right. And like, you know, it's not going to be like that. And I wanted the happy story.
Yeah.
And it felt like such a failure to give up on that being a possibility with that person.
Yeah.
Even though the writing had been on the wall. And it was at that time I started doing a lot of big radical shifts in who I wanted to be and how I wanted to show up and who I was going to invite into my life. And this work of healing, there's so many gifts. I mean, you're feeling better, your mindset shift, you feel like you have the right direction. Mm-hmm. And I've learned that there's a lot of acceptance and grief that has to come with it too, because not everyone that you love and care about is along for that ride.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the word failure. I was thinking about this, where we invest like so much of our identity into the status or who we've kind of landed on, I guess. But I had a friend who she said this quote. She said, "Failure does not exist. You either win or learn." Mm-hmm. And I remember that
lose or learn. Or win or learn?
Either win or learn.
Okay.
Yeah, did I say lose or learn? Sorry.
No, I was just making sure I understood.
Okay, yeah. Failure doesn't exist. You either win or learn. You either succeed or you learn. And that was beautiful because it takes away like the sort of self-deprecating element that we, call failure. But it's really just like, okay, if life didn't really turn out, if this situation didn't turn out the way you wanted, then there's a lesson there. Mm-hmm. What can you learn? You didn't fail. You just have to recalibrate,
Yeah. What's the lesson?
Yeah. And so, like when you said it felt like such a failure because you had this ideal life.
I had a pretty picture in my mind.
Yeah. And I mean, but the thing is, where does that come from? I feel like all the toxic lies that we tell ourselves, come from the formidable years when we're kids. And like, I don't know, observing like sitcoms or something. And I don't know. But that's...
Should we blame the sitcoms?
Yes.
Boycott them?
Yeah. TGIF. Ruined my life.
Ruined me.
Dinosaurs. I thought I was going to find my dinosaur.
Yeah. It's unfortunately, it's a natural part of being human. I think it's a task for being human. I think we come here for those lessons. And I think that it's a joke to think that we know the answers. I feel that we are in a sick society that creates sick people who are depressed and lose sight of what it means to have power of your mindset and who lose sight of what it means to want to have humility and improve. We've been numbed. We've been numbed by substances, by technology, largely. We've been cut off from access to the things that naturally help our emotional immune response heal, like sunlight and being outside and exercise and presence, which means not being on your device.
Yeah.
And community, which means being able to really celebrate with one another in a safe place. And not all even church communities are that, because it's seeped with judgment as well. Yeah. Where perhaps that's the intention, but I hear more and more from people that isn't the feeling that they walk away from, and that's really what matters. Yeah. And I think we need help. I guess that's a part of my why and my reasoning for why I'm here doing this podcast is I have to think that there must be some other souls out there who are feeling the same thing, who are noticing the same thing. It can't just be me.
For sure. And that is the case. There are other souls. You're not alone.
Yeah. So in this work of friendship, community, that kind of theme, we might not have friends who are wanting to travel with us on that path. Yeah. Or family members for that matter. I think that it is hard. I had a friend that I'd had for 15 years. We were college roommates for some time. we'd spent most of our friendship actually states apart, and it was a phone relationship, or we would make yearly visits and see one another, and like this was my like go-to bestie. And I think that she grew in a direction that she needed, and I think that I grew in a direction that I needed, but it wasn't aligned. And it was really incredibly painful, even though I don't know that there was a way around it either. And so sometimes I think we want to blame someone for it, and I might have worked through some of those phases. There's also kind of a profound acceptance with realizing, yeah, I'm so radically and wholeheartedly, not even radically, I'm wholeheartedly invested in me leveling up, in me feeling more of that connection to self, whatever means possible, feeling connected and creative and having clarity and just community. I want all of that, and it requires then having a friend who's willing to give me grace and willing to be introspective and willing to be self-aware and wanting to communicate in a healthy way and have compassion for one another and support one another. And it was sad when that friend couldn't do that for me. And I had to realize that we were really ultimately just learning different lessons. And that gave me a sense of peace. I also frequently choose to send love to them. I kind of picture it like I'm sending a white light of love. I picture it traveling across the miles, across the states, that they somehow feel it and a smile arrives on their face and they have a moment of feeling good. And that's what I hope when I send love to someone it feels like. Maybe they feel nothing, but it still is truly coming from me. It still is honest, and that feels good. And I have to do that because there truly is still a love and care for them, even though we've parted ways. And that might not be the way that everyone ends or leaves a friendship or processes it. That's the way for me that feels right, because I don't want to villainize her in my mind or be tempted by that. It would be unfair and inaccurate. I love her. I just don't know that we can be friends in a healthy way. And I have family members too that I've had to do that with, and it's incredibly, incredibly painful. Yeah. We'll talk about that on a different episode, I think. But
tell us the juicy details. What happened? I'm just kidding.
Oh, man. I need my own therapist to hold my hand. Send him in. But yeah, I guess just the honesty of what it means to kind of realize some of those things can be difficult and painful. But setting boundaries and having the courage to love ourselves means that we're going to risk disappointing others sometimes. Yeah. And disappointing others is a part of this life, because otherwise we have no boundaries.
I'm just realizing that I'm a bad friend as you're talking.
Why do you feel that way, James?
Because I don't really think that I've ever necessarily grieved a friend that I've lost. And I'm realizing it's because it has a lot to do with how selfish I am in the context of a friendship. I don't know how to unpack that, but that's just something that popped in my mind. I might be wrong, but anyway, that's just I'm just thinking out loud.
I think I'm also a highly sensitive person, so I just feel things deeply. I don't know that everyone is required to feel those things deeply, or that they should. I mean, I don't know. And I think if you have, it depends what quality of friends you're wanting, it might feel that way if you feel as though someone is easily replaceable because they don't have some of the more robust characteristics that one might want in a friendship. They're fun.
Well, maybe it's the ones that I am no longer friends with. I didn't grieve because I didn't really want to be their friends.
Yeah, that's a different thing too. Yeah.
And the ones that are still currently my friends, I probably would grieve. Yeah. And so, maybe
that's a difference. And there's been time, but between, I'm sure, some of those situations too. Yeah. Yeah, I think there was a friend who said, like, I don't understand why friendships need to end. Like, yeah, relationships, there's a reasoning for it, but why friendships? And I guess in the context of healthy boundaries, I do understand and see it, because for me, having the right people in my inner circle, that's a high form of self-care that I need.
Yeah.
And that means, like, boundaries are a part of that. They're necessary and they're normal. So I have to operate from that place, honestly, so that I can be in a good headspace for the work that I do and in a good headspace for my family. And I just, those are the standards that I have to have in place for me. That doesn't mean it has to be for everybody, but I think that it is a good thing to think about yourself. What are the qualities that I would like to have in a friend? Who are the people in your life currently that maybe have those qualities and you want to be more curious about?
Yeah.
And who are people who either tempt you or hold a negative perspective, or don't give you that grace, or don't give I don't know, the elements that I think make a happy, healthy friendship too.
Yeah, maybe a good way to approach it is, like, who drains your energy and who gives you energy. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I definitely, and instinctively, I avoid the people who drain my energy. But knowing that I was a drain on people's energy recently because I was needy, with everything that was happening. But, and then if there's a friend that is, like, controlling, I'm just speaking from my own experience, then that's also not okay.
Yeah, I mean, that's where then you would need to have healthy boundaries, and you might find then if you set a boundary with a friend who's being controlling, people who are used to you being easy on them, maybe that's not the right way I want to phrase it, but used to you
being a doormat or something,
or being overly accommodating or over functioning for their comfort, are going to find it odd when you stop doing that. And you might have to realize in those moments that they're not your people if they can't respond in a way that is understanding and allows you to have that boundary. I
have a whole, like, iceberg of information I am thinking of, but it's, like, I don't think it's appropriate to share it. I'll share it offline one of these days.
I think that sometimes the hardest thing about growing up is realizing that your circle of friends is getting smaller, but if you're being intentional about who's in there, hopefully they're getting stronger too. And if not, then I think it's just time to start thinking about it a little bit differently. We don't really lose friends, but I do think that we learn who our real ones are, and that's another way that I've chosen to think about some of it too, that, like, might be there's some natural partings that were meant to happen in order to learn more about yourself. And sometimes that's easier than in, like, a close relationship or even a close friendship if it isn't lining up with the direction you're wanting to go.
Yeah, that's a good barometer.
Yeah, I think it's painful to say goodbye to someone that we love and care for, but it's more painful to ask someone to stay when you know that they, aren't right, aren't the right fit.
Yeah. Do we have? We don't have advice, right, for this episode?
Let me look. I think this one is new. Let me read it to you, okay?
Okay.
Hi, Kaylani and James. I had a question on how to give appropriate space during a breakup. My partner broke things off recently due to dealing with some insecurities and personal self-destructive thoughts in her world. We've always been very open and understanding with each other, but we have always been so strong in our honesty. This is the first time she brought up her insecurities and these thoughts, and it seemed out of nowhere. I tend to be more of a fixer and struggle with the idea of space, even though I do know it is healthy to sometimes separate to come to a stronger point later on. We've made a plan to reconnect in a month at our favorite spot, and she has said there's a possibility to revisit the relationship in the future. So I do have hope in this relationship to be the one, and I definitely do not want to push her away by being clingy. What is the best way to navigate these feelings and the thoughts? We can fix it and allow her to do her thing and go on this journey while still pulling for her. we are some of the do's and don'ts during a situation like this. Thank you so much. Love you guys.
Thank you for writing in.
Yeah.
First of all, I'm encouraged with how many men have been writing in.
Isn't that cool? This person is, this is a follow-up on our friend Luke, actually.
That's okay. That is Luke again.
This is it is. From what I can tell here on our form, yeah.
Okay, so Luke hopefully heard our advice, which would have aired yesterday, and he would have written that before yesterday, right?
Yeah.
So then this has all been playing out real time without our input, but hopefully now he's gotten some good input. Oh yeah, because our advice.
This is just the nature of how our advice will have to roll out for people, unfortunately. Yeah.
Well, at the time you guys are listening to this, his first installment would have been 2 episodes ago, and so this is now. So he's gonna have to wait 2 weeks before.
Well, it'll still be during the break. So, on not being too clingy, I think that can be difficult because in a position that Luke is in, it might be hard to not fixate on it. And I think a lot of men tend to have that, like, I want to fix it type of mentality. I like, too, that he's saying a lot of wanting to support her and support what she's needing. Yeah. And I guess it's the balance between supporting what she's needing and Luke feeling as though... I don't know, he's not put in such a vulnerable position or feel like I want Luke to know that even if it doesn't work out with this person who I can tell he really, really cares about, life is going to be okay, and life has a way of setting ourselves up for better things to come when we're feeling grief over something ending. Yeah. Like sometimes it's more of a lesson of being patient for the right person or the right situation to come back. Yeah. But I think I've shared. Have I shared Zach and I's story of meeting and then breaking up? And I don't know if I did on the podcast. Did I?
You alluded to it.
Okay.
Like I know you guys had a season and then ended, and he came back years later.
Yeah. So I think that it can happen. We did. We had a season where we were dating, and I was definitely the one when he broke up with me. Let that be noted. Okay. and I was like, I'm pretty sure this is supposed to be something. Like I don't know that I felt this with anyone before, and I don't really want to keep searching if I don't have to. But I very much had that, like, if you love it, let it go. Like I'm not.
Like if it's meant to be, it'll come back.
Yeah.
But you had to grieve him though, right?
Yeah.
And so like, there was a point where you had to cut him out of your life, and then he was dead to you, right?
Yeah, I mean, I met someone else who I ended up marrying in that time, and so I'm not suggesting you do that, Luke. But when we came, like, after that relationship ended, Zach and I reconnected kind of on accident. It was like a friend who was like, hey, do you want to come to the Bradley and get a drink? And I didn't know anything. He is a partner at the Bradley, a local restaurant here that had just opened at that time, and I didn't know anything about it or really what was going on with him at all. And that's when we reconnected, and it just felt like, you know, the person who he was, the same things that I really liked about his personality when we dated. I think at that point it had been like 7 years prior. Now it would have been like 10. I liked that. And then all the things but then so much had improved, like his confidence or his like ability to find balance, or all these things had also just gotten better, and he saw that in me too, like, oh, there's still the essence of who you are that I like, but then this is like the grown-up version of you. It's so nice to get to know this version, you know? So that is sometimes a possibility in relationships, but it does mean, like, I lost hope for Zach and I coming back together. Like, you know, me 7-8 years ago, if I would have told them that this is where my life is at, I don't think I would have believed it. Yeah. And for Luke, then, my advice is to really think about how he can then reinvest in himself. If she's taking this time to do, you know, understand herself and work through her insecurities, then I want to know how you can work through some things too. Like, does that mean having maybe a different type of discipline when it comes to working out or reading self-help books and books about self-awareness? Or does it mean finding your own counselor? Or what type of area are you wanting to improve on? I would say trying to really focus on that is going to be helpful, not only as a distraction if you're missing her, but as a way to give you some more clarity about what you're needing and wanting to.
Yeah. And, well, I mean, because for him, I'm just imagining I've been in a similar position of like this like purgatory where, because it sounds like he is really clinging on to hope. That he even said, I have hope they're going to meet in a month at their favorite place. And that, I mean, that could be her just like not wanting to totally break his heart and agreeing to that, because if I were in a situation, I would be worried, like, well, what if a month comes by and then it's just, more pain? Like, you want to end it. You're completely done, but you're just delaying that. And so, I don't know. Because it sounds like something is influencing her to be unsure, but then that's not really okay for him to allow that, because it's unfair for him to be dragged on through this. So it's almost like you have to find a bottom line and say, and take control and be like, I'm not going to live in this maybe, either it's yes or no. If it's anything but a yes, then I'm concluding that it's a no. So if it's a no, then you can go figure stuff out, but I'm not going to sit here and keep my heart open and my guard down just until you're ready. Because that's a really drawn out, slow death versus just a quick bullet to the head and it's over. Yeah. Because like the reason I asked about if you had to like cut Zach off back then and if you had to grieve him is because in order for you to have successfully moved on from him, he had to die to you, but thankfully he came back. Because if he had just kind of like, if he had come back and forth in your life all those years, hypothetically.
Well, it just wouldn't have fit with the integrity of who I am.
Yeah.
But I think that in order to have hope for something else, you do need to find a way to have closure and move on. And I think as a generalization, it is good to create distance, and whatever that means. There are certainly people I've seen who are able to maintain a friendship with their ex or have different feelings about it. So I hesitate to give like a black and white answer. Yeah. But I do appreciate what you're saying very much about Luke basically protecting his heart a bit and not maybe being so readily available. Yeah. And trying, and I think if you are kind of having that hope and living and thriving off of that hope, and then there's a possibility of being disappointed, I would hate for there to be resentment that grows too, when really it was the hope that was brewing this idea of reconnection being more possible. Yeah. So I think it's a mix of, it's really important to support someone when they're going on this healing journey, and you can say, I support you to do that. And I hear what you're saying. I hear that you're needing that space, and I can give that to you. But also, if this is about our relationship, I want to be involved in what it is that you're thinking and processing. And I don't want to feel as though, I don't know, there's confusion about where I stand. So I feel like Luke could say very clearly, I want to be with you, and I'm going to want to reach out to you. Yeah. Know that I'm not reaching out because I'm trying to honor where you're at. But I don't want you to be confused about how I feel. Yeah. However, if you're not going to give me an indication that you want to be in this relationship, I will have no choice but to try and create distance and move on. Yeah. Yeah, and that's not clingy, that's clarity. Yeah. And clear is kind, unclear is unkind. Yeah. And his wife or girlfriend, whatever. Girlfriend. Yeah, she's being very unclear, which is very unkind. So in order to protect yourself,
you create the clarity, you create the boundaries, and say. But I mean, just I don't want to keep hammering on this, but like for me personally, I would probably approach it, but I have a clear mind right now, so that it's easier said than done. But I would probably approach it with like, during that month when you're away, I'm going to do everything I can to get over you, because my fear, but I have like a fear of abandonment, so that might be something. But my fear is that we're going to get to the end of the month. You will have been living rent-free in my head 24/7 that entire time. I would have been agonizing the entire time, hoping that there's going to be a happy ending to that month. But then we get to the end of the month, most likely there won't be a happy ending. She's just delaying the inevitable. And then it ends. I'm devastated all over again. And it was just really slow, drawn-out death. And so to protect Luke from that, it's like, no, you have to just... If you grieve her and move on to a certain level during that month, and then there is a happy ending, awesome, but you weren't agonizing the entire time, But most likely, just from what I've seen in life experiences, there's not going to be a happy ending to this,
Well, on Sex and the City, there was a happy ending when Miranda and Steve met on the Brooklyn Bridge, and I mean, I don't know what the ending is going to be for Luke. I want to hold space for him, and I want to hold some hope for the situation.
Yeah.
But in giving clarity, I do think that he needs to consider what he's needing, and he needs to consider what would happen in these possible outcomes and how he would feel. And that might determine and help him reflect on what boundaries he is needing. Because I do think that it is fair for him. It's fair for him to be able to do that, to be able to have distance and focus on himself. He doesn't. I don't think that just kind of waiting, kind of in the wings is a safe place for his heart to be, because there's uncertainty right now. Right now, the trust and commitment of the relationship house, basically, that Gottman phrasing or picture that we've talked about, it's weak, and that makes it difficult to know what the future of a relationship looks like.
Yeah.
So we're rooting for you, Luke. I'm rooting for you to feel whole within yourself. Mm-hmm. I'm rooting for you to feel clarity in what you need to do, even if the hardest thing and the right thing is the same. And I'm rooting for you to find connection with someone who really values and appreciates you, whether that's your partner after processing through things and healing, or whether that's someone different who can be a better fit for what you're needing. But those are the things I'm gonna keep that vision for you, and hope that you can navigate that.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for writing in.
Yeah.
You can check on our link to write to us and write in advice, just as Luke did. We would love to be able to give you some of our thoughts. It's not a replacement for therapy. This is Kaylani, the person giving advice. I've taken my therapy hat off. And please like, subscribe, and participate with us on social media. This is a passion project of 3 people, and we love what we do, and it fuels us. It's our gasoline in our tank when we know that it is making a connection for you.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for those of you who have commented and let us know what it means to join the Delightfully Dysfunctional community and to be a delightful human, because we really like it. We like being messy and honest and making vulnerability cool again and creating this curious culture. It's something that lights us up and we're passionate about.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you wanted to say, James?
No.
No.
Just kidding.
Okay.
Nope.
Just another reminder, I am starting round 2 and getting interest for the Intentional Love Workshop that is about the 7 principles that make marriage work by John Gottman. I'm also accepting couples as clients and scheduling out into the summer probably, and individuals who are really goal-driven to make some changes in their life. And until the next time we see you, please stay delightfully dysfunctional, and we'll catch you next time.
Good
Bye.
morrow.